This is Morten from English TV, and we are back with yet another episode of Over the Skype. I know that it's been a while since you got the pleasure of watching me talking to good friends around the world. And this time we're going back to Israel. We're going to meet Aviram Vardi, who is working for a very, very exciting company in Israel. It's not exactly a startup, but I think they still consider themselves a little bit as a startup because they have got some very good idea. Maybe you saw that on Print Sample TV a couple of years ago. But the company is called Twine, and they do individually, digitally colored yarns. And Aviram, why don't you tell a little bit more about who you are and what Twine does?
Thank you very much for the opportunity, first of all. My name is Aviram, and I'm Twine's product manager, marketing manager as well. And just a little bit about myself before we start. I am working in Twine for the last 2 years. Before Twine, I worked in the professional printing industry. So my whole professional life, I was an engineer in the multidisciplinary portfolio, which means there's a lot of software and hardware and chemistry and physics involved in all of my work. I'm a product specialist. And after being a part of the revolution, digital revolution in the printing industry, watching how the conventional goes digital, I was offered this opportunity to join Twine by the founder of Twine, Alon Moshe, who invited me to manage the product here at Twine and join another digital revolution now in the textile industry. And I found it amazing, and I'm so happy to join in. So here I am. A little bit about Twine.
Yeah, and now let me ask you a question before we go to Twine, because now you introduced yourself also as this, because just before we turned on the recording, you said to me that one of the things that surprised you a little bit about entering from the graphical market to the textile market was the size of the market. So you were taken away, blown away by the size, right?
I came from an industry which is considered among one of the 10 biggest one. Now it moves every year between the size, obviously. And I thought it was a huge industry. I traveled the world from China to Mexico, and I saw sites were huge in Germany, in Spain, and the volumes of material and people working in this industry blew my mind. And I thought it was a big industry. And suddenly I joined the textile industry and I said, what? It's even bigger. And not that it's even bigger, it's more complicated. The amount of media you need to handle in order to get a product, the variety of processes you've got, it's 10 factors bigger than the art industry, but it's very similar in the process life cycle. So it was easy for me to penetrate this market, personally and professionally, because it's very similar. It's just 10 times bigger and more complicated, obviously.
But one of the things that I was curious about when you say that, I think that, you know, if you look at the printing industry, obviously the commercial printing industry has suffered quite a lot during the past years, and a lot of new industries like wide format, large format, also the corrugated, the packaging, label, everything is moving. And I think that also, as English is I think that we are mainly considered a channel for the printing industry, maybe less for the textile industry, right? But the reason why I was very curious about talking to you is also because I think a lot of printers are looking towards, you know, delivering. It can be garment print, it can be textile print in general. So do you see this starting a kind of a crossover between industries?
Obviously, yes, because when it comes to direct to garment, direct to fabric, at the end of the day, it's a different media. Once you solved the issue of how to apply the ink on the media, what do you care about the media?
Yeah.
Okay, it's the engineer's problem to solve the material tension and all of that. But conceptually, it's the same. You know, if you visited the last ITMA, and obviously you did, you saw the huge a section of the printing companies that came in. If it's HP, if it's Bobst, if it's Mess from Italy, if it's Durst from Germany, and more companies, and EFI obviously, and yes, there is a huge overlap. So that's why I said it. For me, it was quite trivial to go in because I understand that at the end of the day, the pain points are in the supply chain. And I'll even give later more examples. And if digital can solve something, it's the supply chain. Because the t-shirt I'm wearing and the fabric I'm wearing, it's the same fabric. I'll use it the same way. It's just what happened before it came to the retailer or to the brand or to the store that is really the story here. And again, this is exactly what we've learned and now we promote. The major change is behind the scene. And we'll talk about a little bit about the iceberg in the digital in the digital textile industry today. For me today, it's an iceberg. And if you want to know why, you need to ask exactly how I see it later on.
Yeah, I don't want to wait. I just want to hear it now. So why you don't tell me?
It's funny because I use the iceberg as the finale because, look, digital exists in the textile industry. There are dozens of companies, if not hundreds today, that are moving to digital. I gave some of the name earlier, but there are also the more, I would say, trivial companies. You have a Browseware, and you have Claw, and you have DMI, and you have Swatchbook, and I can continue. If I forgot somebody, I'm sorry. And there's Claw, and there's so many, and Optitex. I'll continue. I'll remember more. At the end of the day, digital exists. So the design is there, and the 3D is there, and the only problem is that they are the tip of the iceberg. To be honest, the textile industry itself is beneath the water. Okay, all the production, the dye houses, the cut and sew houses, the knitting houses. This is what you don't see. And today, except for several companies, we said them earlier, but there are literally nothing. You've got SPG and all of that, but there are small portions, 10 times small in portions than digital in the graphic arts industry. They are big, and this is beneath the item, and that's what we change. We literally bring something which is not on the top of the surface to design digitally. Obviously, it's how do you do it differently? You have to go there. But to manufacture something, a part of the supply chain which will become digital, well, that's new. And the direct to garment and direct to fabric brought it a little bit. And we in Twine understood that this is the change that will come. So to be the first, it's always a pleasure, to revolutionize something. It's a big word. I don't like to use revolutionize. And even if you go to the website, our website, you won't find revolution. Everybody, you wake up, we make a revolution. No, the change must come from the inside, and we want to change that. We want the brand that until now had to spend time and money and waste it in I'm not even going to sustainability, just time and money, because they wanted this type of purple, and they got this type of purple. And I don't know if you see it in your camera, but this is like
I can see the difference. Yeah.
7 delta is between the two. But the difference between the two, you understand that today it's only the pH in the water, for example.
Yeah.
That's the difference, and we can solve that. We can literally solve it and get it on time. That's a change. That's a healthy change because it's coming from beneath.
Yeah. One of the things that I can't help thinking of is you're probably familiar with the concept of new print. I spoke to Ron Gilboa and to Frank Romano at Print 18 when we talked about these books and the things, and the two gentlemen was quite funny because they said that, well, new print, we talk about new print as, print to fabrics, print to garment, products like twine and, all these kind of things. But as I think it was Ron Gilboa from that, he worked with Keypoint Intelligence at that time. He said, well, it's not really new print. It's just because we move it to digital, because as you say, all the things under the iceberg has been done conventionally since hundreds of years, right? So it's more because the technology allows us to solve some of the issues, for example, the environmental issues, the excess stock issues, the supply chain issues as you spoke about, and all those kind of things. And I think that is really what also is maybe the reason why some of the printing companies who used to work on paper is now also looking into, because as you say, the methodology is pretty much the same, right?
It's identical. Not the same, it's identical. It's literally copy paste. You don't need to do more than copy paste. The challenges are bigger. If I thought when I came in, what's the problem? Let's take the ink. We know the ink. Let's put it on a fiber instead of on a paper or a PET. No, the challenges are bigger. First of all,
But that is because it's a first mover thing, right? Because if as soon as you have got the trick under your skin, then it's not difficult anymore, right?
No. That's the challenge. That's the big difference. If I can say that there is one big difference between these two industries, is the physical or the product challenge. The product is much more challenging. The media is much more challenging. The ink has much more regulations. If you thought about regulations of ink migration or into food, think about ink migration into the skin of your baby. The regulations are much more challenging here, not to mention the conditions. The soda bottle you will buy with the label stands in a supermarket in the air condition, right? But the car seat is in the sun. Now, I'm not talking about Germany when you have 2 days of sun a year. I'm talking about Israel. You have 360 days of sun a year. So the challenges are much higher in this industry. But conceptually, copy, paste, for sure.
Okay, so there's a huge market opportunity, and I think that Twine has. You are, as far as I know, you're the only one that do digital yarns, aren't you?
Not the only ones. There is one other company, and there are companies who are trying to do it on fibers directly. But we are literally the first company who managed to do it for a wide range of media. As I told you earlier, if I would take one type of yarn, and there are hundreds, okay? There are hundreds or thousands even, and I would build a machine that is focused on one type of yarn with one type of physics and one type of chemistry, it's doable. But then you have no solution, because the smallest homegrown shop, moms and pops, that is doing embroidery, they use literally 5 to 6 types. So even for them, it's not a solution. We came up with the first machine that is agnostic. I don't care today if you manufacture your yarn, as a raw yarn in India, in Turkey, in Germany. I don't care. The system doesn't care about it. I don't care if it's a filament yarn or it's a spun yarn, if it's a core spun, if it's a multi-filament or a monofilament. So this is the secret. The secret is to give a solution to the market. A machine that literally you can take white yarn. You see there's a white yarn, I don't know if you see behind me, going into the system and going out with any color you selected with zero knowledge in physics, zero knowledge in chemistry. This is an Industry 4.0 solution. You can literally take your phone, send it the color info to the system, and you dye it. So without any knowledge in dye stuff, in chemistry, and the printing industry, you need a lot of it. A 5 minutes course on the application here, you're the master dyer in the world, and your quality result of yarn is equivalent to somebody who's been doing it for 30 years. So that's a revolution.
Yeah.
Agnostic
but that was actually why I was asking, because I mean, okay, then you are a few digital suppliers in that segment of the textile industry. But that is like the first mover advantage you get, because I remember the first time I heard about you, I hardly believed that it was possible to do. So I remember, I saw that yarns that were changing color or over the length, and how it was woven into products that simply doesn't exist in my mind. And that opportunity is like moving a completely new as you say, one thing is to change the existence of existing fabrics and existing technologies. But another thing is that when you move things to digital, you suddenly get an opportunity to create completely new types of products as well, right?
Yes, I agree. Even if today you were working with the most advanced supplier who can do some kind of a special customized space dyeing and control the color or dye after, these are super, super complicated and sometimes, or in many cases, are not worthwhile. Nobody will do it. They're very expensive. And then comes a machine that by programming it to the right way, because you have the design, we can connect ourselves to a design software. If you have designed a 3D model of a color changes and you understand the array of the yarn, put it in the system, tell the system from meter to meter, dye me this. I can give you an example of a sock we did, and there's a gradient change. Why? Because I know that there are literally 0.6 or 1 gram of yarn there. I know when it starts, I know when it ends, and I can tell the color to change along the way. So yes, it also allows you to do more, because you would not do that. It's not worth a while to do it. Even if you do, you can do it today manually. Literally not worth a while, too expensive for a product that you'll sell in $5, okay? Nobody will invest $5 in manufacturing of a product that costs a sales point. Nobody will do that. No. So we offer that. And the capability to do something like that without, again, I'm going back to the supply chain because that's where the money really is buried. You want to do this, you know how much it will cost you to design it, to test it, and then to approve it? The cost cycle of these things is, and that's where digital comes into the picture, and this is the magic of digital. All of this cost disappears. No matter if it's a bulk product or a simple color, a spot, I would say color for a brand, or if it's crazy design that you want to do a campaign with and something unique, there are hidden costs. And you don't think about them today because you have no alternative. You said we are the first one. So yes, we are the first one to literally provide a solution that will change your cost aspects.
And if you look at it from, one thing is that we talk about the supply chain, and I would like to dig into that in a second, but you say that it goes from small volume to bulk volume. Where is the break point of going digital versus analog?
So this is challenging. If you're looking about a product like a sports socks, and the majority of them are white because that's what we like, the feeling of clean, you have a logo. You can do bulk logos. For sure, a bulk logo is 0.3, 0.2, 0.6 gram. It's nothing, and you can do bulks with them. When it comes to a shirt is 100, and for example, my polo shirt is 120 grams. And that's a polyester, a semi-sport. I like them. What can we do?
That's okay.
So this one, no, this is not. This is only for sampling.
Yeah.
Where's the trade-off? Pending product, pending yarn. This is a very challenging question because 1 kilo of this type of yarn will be something like 50 kilometers. 1 kilo of a logo yarn for the sport bra will be 125 kilos. And that's what I said, we spoke about. The graphic arts, it's nothing compared to the complexity you have with the textile industry. The breaking point is per application. Just one example, if we're talking about leather goods, bags, shoes, definitely production.
Yeah. Okay.
You've got 5, 6, 7 meters in a shoe, definitely production.
Yeah.
Again, when I'm going back to shirts, jackets, it's sampling.
Yeah. The reason why I was asking is because, I mean, the thing that I'm always interested in when we look into new technology is obviously also the business potential, because one thing is the supply chain, because I don't know if you saw that, but we made an interview with your colleagues from Kornit when we were in Israel a couple of months ago, and as they said that the price points and the time and the KPIs are similar to what you're talking about right now, right? And I think that for the people that watch this episode and hopefully reach out to you and be more interested in knowing how they can get on board with you guys, is to understand. How should they look at it? Because if you invest in an offset press or a digital press for paper, the business model, everything. So I'm just trying to help our customers and our audience to understand a little bit on what they should look into when they are in evaluating whether a Twineway could be interesting for them to dig into, right?
Your question is loud and clear. I would start by putting aside for a second the R&D, because that's everybody, or development or sample making, because the value there is clear, and I'll give you an example later. I'll go for the production. This is the first generation of the product. The capacity is not enough for the majority of textile industry. Again, the volumes in textile industry are crazy high, and it's not enough for production. Where is it enough? It's enough when I'm doing specific application, when I'm a shoe manufacturer, when I'm an embroiderer, when I'm leather bags or leather goods, or if I'm a haute couture, definitely will suit you for your production because the volumes are small.
Yeah.
And we can answer those needs, and the speed of production will be enough, and by decent planning you can go wherever you want. If you are talking, is this enough for production of sportwear in Sri Lanka today when they manufacture for the big brands? Definitely no. This will be the next generation. But we also don't aim there. You need to know how to walk before you know how to run. Even almighty HP Indigo, to begin with, I remember the segment of label in HP Indigo. They started with somebody with labels for small breweries. That's it. That was the capacity. Nobody did production with them.
And see where it took them, right?
And see where it took them. One of the leading segments. I remember there was a year that HP Indigo alone sold more label presses than the entire three largest suppliers in the market.
So, really?
Wow. Yeah, there was a year they sold more than the three largest. So understanding where can we go with that. But obviously, this is the first generation. The TS1800, it's our first. It is limited into the world of production. It is fantastic if you manufacture small batches or campaign or haute couture. Definitely you can use it for production.
So in those examples, is that like the fashion houses themselves that invest in a Twine, or who's the typical customer for this?
Today our main we see our two main customers now as the brands themselves. Fashion houses, the brands themselves, they use this as their supply chain problem solver for R&D and sampling. I'll give you an example. A minute before the COVID broke in, I visited a very large manufacturer of lingerie in France. There are several, so I won't tell you.
We can't guess, right? We could just know France, right?
A small country like France, yeah. So I visited one. And their daily life is, if they want to manufacture a bra, is that they need to order in advance a yarn. And let's say they didn't go for the general or generic black or white. They went for the fashion colors. Last year it was X-Rite coral. And they went for the coral, okay? And they ordered in this specific bra two types of yarn. One was the decoration, the zigzag, and one was for the overlocks and the stitches and everything. And they ordered the same color, so the same shade, and it took them a week. Now, first of all, there is a minimal order quantity. So instead of getting 100 meters for the test, they got a box of 50 kilometers. So they got a box. Let's say they don't care about the box. They paid for the box while they could pay for the 100 meters. Let's say they don't care about it. They waited 8 weeks to get these two boxes because it's not a card catalog a color. It's a specific custom-made color. They're a brand. They have their own shades. They waited 8 weeks. Not only that they waited something like 8 weeks, they got two different shades.
Fantastic.
Two different yarns. So, and you know what? At the end of the day, they didn't make a hassle of it because they need to go to production.
Yeah.
8 is enough time to say, wait, I don't have room for mistake. Now, imagine working with twine. They could have taken 2 white yarns. One was spun, the other one was filament. Put them at the machine, choose the same catalog color, and get it in a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
So just try to understand. And even if the color is not the color they wanted, there's no penalty. They just went back to the machine, said, I want it a little bit more orange or darker. And they got it a minute after. And this is what we offer today with this machine for the brand. So you asked me about the brands. Any type of brand, from haute couture to daily life, can benefit from that because it changes the supply chain of R&D, of sample making, of sales sample making, definitely every type of brand. And when it comes to production, then you need to do this differentiation between small batches, campaigns, personalization, versus the bulks that it's less for them today, except for small bulks, which suits perfectly fine.
So, great opportunities. How did Twine as a company get started, and how old are you, and how did you get along?
So that's an easy one. Twine is 5 years old.
Only 5 years.
Earlier, you said earlier we're not exactly a startup, but we also we do see ourselves as a startup. Sometimes Israel is, people call Israel the startup nation. Relatively to the amount of people live here in Israel, yes, we have a lot of startup companies. We are not a startup anymore. We have a product. When you have a startup, you have a concept. You need to.
I have to apologize because when I said startup, it was positively meant because it was more like sometimes sometimes English is 6 years old, but we still consider it a startup because it has this positive of always being adaptive to the market and the changes and being agile.
If this is the reference, we are definitely a startup. We came with cutting edge technology. Everything is in-house. We learned that the solutions in the market today does not suit us. For example, inside the machine, it's not inkjet. It's our own treatment chamber because we understood that if we want to be, as I told you earlier, yarn agnostic, we need to develop our own solution. There was nothing that could answer this in the market today. So 5 years ago, 2 brothers, Alon and Erez Moshe, the founders, who has a small 35 years experience in the printing industry.
Only 35 years.
Only, yeah. They are both, Alon, our CEO, came from Indigo, was one of the main developers back in the days. And Erez is an owner and was an owner, if I'm not mistaken, of a very large printing house. So we had both the R&D and both the industry coming together. And, being so innovative and so into the industry, they came up with a question, why not textile? And they said, wait, there is already textile. You said Kornit. Kornit is an amazing company. And so there is already direct to garment and direct to fabric. But what's behind it? What about direct to yarn or something like that, or direct to fiber? So they did some studies and they understood that there is a need for that. And the need comes from all over the market, all over the world. And they started this. Alon, who is our CEO, decided to go in a very DevOps kind of company. It means that we are production oriented. We manufacture a system which is reliable and stable and very mature in our approach. As you can see, it doesn't look like a toy. It's a machine.
Looks like a real machine.
Looks like a real machine. And that was the concept to begin with. Therefore, he hired a lot of professionals. I don't think that in this company, except maybe for the students we have here, there is somebody who is less experienced than at least a decade. And most of us are coming from XJet, from HP, from AVT, from Scodix, from Kornit. So a lot of us are coming from this industry of printing and multidisciplinary, because to create something like this in such a short time and to bring it to real product with real value, and again, as I told you, not something which is a niche, but a product that I can go today to the largest brands of leather goods. I can go today to the largest brands of sportswear, and with the same sales pitch, and I can sell them. And this is a solution for all of them. In order to do that, you need maturity. And I think he did it really wisely, because he could have done it, I would say, more faster or more or less reliable, but he didn't. We have 5 people with PhD in the company working on this. It's a startup company with 5 PhDs. Nobody is investing so much money to do something. So yeah.
Just of curiosity, because I mean, 5-year-old company, and you have a product that it already has a business record. I was just wondering, because one thing is that with the engineering and the amazing amount of people from different companies with different skill sets, but how to get it to market? Because one thing is to manufacture and develop the prototypes and get it, the nice plastic covers and everything like that. Are you getting attention from the market? Are you already break even, or how far are you with that from a financial perspective?
So I cannot tell you if we are break even, because I don't know.
Yeah. That was easy. That was easy, right?
Yeah, I wish I knew. No, I'm not too much into the finance, so I apologize.
Okay, but
I can tell you.
I was just about to say that you don't have to say about the finance. I was more like, one thing is to get the product and get all the research about the potential in the market, but do you also get it out working in the market? Because that is, eventually that will make you break even. So that was more my question.
The system is installed, the system is working, the system is already working in production. We have passed a lot of tests, such a new product. Think about a brand, a very high-end brand. And they need to replace a product which is working for, you said, 200 years. Okay, and suddenly they come and say, let's replace it. It doesn't work this way.
No.
It doesn't. We have been tested and evaluated by so many institutes, from Spain to France to Germany to Turkey, and we passed all of these testing criteria, which mean that the product is already a product. And yes, we have already sold the machine, and it's already working in production lines. I cannot tell you that in all of them it's 100% coverage of the entire production line, but definitely products are out, products are being used. We have specific campaigns that people now got because they could do some unique stuff with us. And so we are pleased. Obviously, we wanted more. Everybody wants more, but I can't tell you that I'm depressed and we didn't penetrate. No, we definitely.
You don't look depressed, Aviram.
No. What I wanted, you asked me, and I remembered that in ITMA, I've been in several Drupas, and Drupa is always busy and a lot of potential and prospect. The amount of attention we got at ITMA, which is the Drupa of the textile industry.
That's the one in Barcelona, right?
I never saw something like that. Never ever saw so much attention. We got so much attention. So many people came in. The largest brands the largest manufacturer you ever heard of, and the ones that you never heard of, who actually manufacture for the largest brand you heard of. All of them were interested in this solution. Now, as I told you, we are a very responsible company. We do not plan to sell hundreds of models next year or systems next year. No, not at all. We know where we are going. We'll sell dozens of units, yes, but very particularly because we want to give support, and there is an application support. We came from the world of application support. We know what the right support is, and we plan to do it, and we have a nice assembly of customer support and application team. Because every time you move with a new product, you need to remember that there are people that are going to use it. For me to use it, it's a game, it's a toy, I can use it like that. But you need the confidence.
Yeah.
So even if it's easy to use, you need to be confident in the use. and we know how to bring this into the table again with all of the experience we have from all of our past companies. And this is where we will help and win our customers in this exact aspect.
Very, very exciting, and time flies by so fast. So, Aviram, I just want to thank you very much for taking time to talk to me here over the Skype. It's been a pleasure. I hope to meet you in real life someday. I hope to see your equipment maybe at some customer in progress. That could be fun. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.